So my name's Sue Cumming. I'm from Liverpool City Council, Public Health. And I've been invited here today to talk about the projects we run in Liverpool on Behavioural Insight and Change. Now, we use two different methodologies in Liverpool for running behavioural insight projects, and I'm going to give you examples of both of those today. So behaviour. The way we behave is very complex. As human beings, we cannot predict sometimes how someone's going to behave. Now, behaviour is driven by what motivates us. What are our values? What are our beliefs, our thoughts? Now, we're all individuals and we can't guess how other people behave. But there's two different mindsets in terms of how behaviour works. One is automatic and the other is reflective. And we're going to look at those two different mindsets and how behaviour works. And it's those methodologies then that relate to the different mindsets, automatic and reflective. So as an example, just to put that into context, if you take these two people, Barack Obama and Homer, I could have used a different example there, but I thought best not. If you look at one as the reflective and the other as the automatic state. So if you take the reflective state, it's very logical, it's a thought process. You actually think through a logical process, you plan, it's slow, it takes effort, you solve problems. The other side is automatic, it's based on your habits, based on your emotions, your impulse, and it usually happens very fast. So one takes time and information to process. The other, it's just habit forming and the way your brain works. Simple cues are around us in everyday world. Take a simple M, shaped in that way, with that colour. It'll make you think in a certain way. It'll create a shortcut in your mind, and it'll mean something different to you, maybe to the person sitting next to you. It may be a positive thought, it may be a negative thought. It's entirely sort of how your habits are being formed, but it'll create a shortcut in your mind which will mean something to you and could make you behave in a certain way with that simple cue. So that's the automatic thought process. If you look at this, now we've got a range of colours. Now if you can all together say the colours that you see. All together. So, say the colours again. No, say the colour that you see. Say the colour, so yellow, so you're seeing yellow. Sorry, start again. Say the colour that you see.
Red, blue, green, yellow.
Say the colour that you see.
Yellow, green, blue, red.
Say the colour that you see.
Yellow, blue, red, green.
There's simple and not simple, but there's ways that we can trick the brain, the mind, to do things which we don't really know we're doing. And the commercial world are masters at doing this. They can get us to behave in ways which they want us to behave for their own commercial gain. So from a public service point of view, there's a lot we can learn from that and a lot we can do from that methodology for our own gain within the public sector, within local government. So if we look at the automatic and the reflective, so your automatic in terms of behaviour change theories, your automatic is your behavioural insights, also known as nudge theory. And your reflective is your insight and social marketing theory. And we're going to look at both of those and sort of the terminologies, the theories and methodologies behind each of them. Because in Liverpool we use both, and you can combine the two as well to greater effect. So on your automatic behavioural insight theory side, this is more used in sort of randomised controlled trials. On your insight and social marketing side, it uses marketing channels at scale. So it would use things like your social media, film, outdoor advertising, posters, and so on. So it's a more sort of visible route, whereas your behavioural insights is a small trial, randomised trial in a certain area. Your behavioural insights uses evidence, it uses literature, it uses data. It's already there for you to find and look at and understand and use. With your with your insight and social marketing, you need to go out and speak to your audience. You need to understand the thought process in your audience's head. So two completely different ways to change behaviour, but both have the same outcome. So if we look at the behavioural insight side of things first, it's more than communications. Has anyone seen this picture? Does anyone know what this picture is? Do you want to say?
Is it the Amsterdam toilet example?
Yes. So what that is urinal with a fly painted on the urinal. And the reason that's there is to get men to aim better, to then stop mess and avoid having to clean. Now, that's an automatic process that has worked, it's been evaluated, and it has worked extremely well. And it's just a process that has got the brain sort of working in a way then that makes somebody think in an automatic way. They're not even thinking about it, it just happens. So there's tools out there for behavioural insights, and you may have seen some of this morning if you went to, is it Tim Pearce's presentation? Did anyone go to that this morning? So you may have seen some of this there. I believe he spoke about EAST. So EAST is a condensed version of Mindspace. So Mindspace, it's an acronym for all of those things: messenger, incentives, norms. And it talks about how the brain works and psychology and the way we behave and why we behave the way we do. So take defaults, for example. So defaults are options that are pre-selected for us if you do not make an active decision to change that. Now, because people are full of inertia, we very often leave that default rather than making a decision to change it, because it takes effort to change. So that can actually influence how someone's going to behave. Now, if you take a commercial world sort of example of that, you've probably all seen this from Amazon. So when you get to the checkout and you're about to finish your order, it automatically selects one way you pay. It never automatically selects the free one. You have to then make that decision to change. So that's from a commercial sort of way in terms of how they do it for commercial gain. Using that same methodology for the benefit of health, take an example of organ donation. So in the UK, we have to opt in to be an organ donor. In a lot of European countries, you have to opt out. So you're automatically opted in. So you can see in terms of organ donation from the likes of France, Poland, a lot higher than UK, because the default is you're already opted in and not many people opt out. Now, I believe the UK are looking at doing that here. You can see sort of the huge difference. So if we take it back there, another mind space is norms. So let's have a look at norms. As human beings, we like to behave as other people do. We like to belong in sort of a group of people that are similar to ourselves. And we can use that from a marketing sort of angle for great effect. So take this, for example. This is about using antibiotics, overprescribing antibiotics. So this letter was sent to GPs, and what the letter said is 80% of practices in your area prescribe fewer antibiotic per head than yours. So it's telling the GP he's out of that norm, he's behaving in a different way, and actually got GPs to change their behaviour because they wanted to be part of the norm. So you can create norms in many, many different ways here in how you want to get people to behave for whatever effect or whatever issue you have. So we're going to go to an example that we used, nudge technique in Liverpool. Now, we were very fortunate with this pilot to work with the LGA and also the Cabinet Office Nudge team, Behavioural Insight team. So there's a huge issue nationally in terms of obesity. Obesity is being driven by overconsumption of calories, especially sugar. People just don't realise how much sugar is in everyday items that we eat, what our children eat. And it's very difficult to look at labels and understand the context of sugar, the amount of sugar. So both of the examples I'm going to give you today are based on sugar reduction. One is aimed at adults using behavioural insights and nudge. The other is aimed at parents of children using market research, social marketing and insights. So this is the nudge example. Much of the sugar we consume is through mindless consumption. Now, our environment, again, from the commercial world, is set up in a way to make us do, as I say, certain things. So things like your 2-for-1, your meal deals, even where things are positioned on a shelf. Has anyone heard of choice architecture? So supermarkets spend loads of time of where they're going to position items on a shelf, because they know if it's at your eye level, they will sell a lot more than if it's above or below. So if you want to sort of overcompensate in terms of selling something, put it on a middle shelf. I thought that was a good example. So take a normal fridge in a normal supermarket, which I'm sure you've seen time and time again. So working with the Behavioural Insight team and the LGA, we started to look at the literature, we started to look at why people are consuming too much sugar, what are the nudge techniques that we could use to help sort of change people's behaviour in this area. Take a simple stop sign. Now, as soon as you've seen that, it creates a shortcut in your mind. That all meant something to you, all had meaning, and I'm sure most of it was stop, danger, don't go there. It's something which we've been conditioned to understand. Even just the colour, the shape. So we started with that as a starting point. And then we placed simple, got a copy here, on the shelf of where the sugary drinks were. Now, we didn't put green for the healthy, red for the unhealthy, because what we were concerned about then, that there was a risk that people then could overcompensate if they thought something was healthier and then increase calorie consumption because of that. So we only put this on the shelves where the high sugar drinks were. And it says a high sugar diet can lead to weight gain and tooth decay. Drinks on this shelf contain at least 8 grams of sugar per 100 mils. Now, that small wording doesn't really need to say much. It mightn't even mean anything to anyone. That was just there to quantify if people wanted that information. Just having that on its own would be enough as well. So we had this on shelves and refrigerators in our hospital cafes over a 14-week period. Week 1, it was on the shelf. Week 2, we took it off, on, off for 14 weeks. So we could compare and contrast the weeks that it was on and the weeks that it was off. So over the 14-week period, we've seen a 7.3% reduction in the sales of high sugar drinks, but no change in overall sales. So can lead you to the conclusion that people then bought healthier drinks because this was on the shelf. Now, to replicate this, it's very cheap, very easy. This has just got a sticky back, quite cheap to produce, to stick on a shelf in any retail setting. It can even go in lifestyle centres, sports places, places which I'm sure your local council would have control over. A very easy and cheap way to reduce sugar. So we're going to look now at the example for children. So this was aimed at parents of children aged 4 to 11. So what I mentioned before about social marketing and insight is you need to speak to your audience. You need to listen to them. You need to understand why they behave the way they do. Everyone's got the reasons, and sometimes it may be rational, sometimes it may be irrational. So you have to have that understanding of why people behave the way they do. So, traditional approach, people use data to try and understand the audience. That's not enough. If you just use data, take this example. Male, born 1948, second marriage, affluent family, from a well-known family. Any guesses? Just say, because you're probably right, just the first thing that comes to your head.
Charles.
Yeah, okay, you're right. But it could be either of these people. So how wrong could you get that if you just look at sort of high-level data on a person? And if you go down the approach of thinking that person's that person, how wrong you could get that. So you need to go and speak to the people. You need to understand why they're behaving the way they do, through insight, through market research. Now, we're fortunate in Liverpool that we're able to use independent market research agencies. They have a bag of tools and tricks to sort of delve deeply into someone's mind. It's not a case of asking a question and getting an answer back, and that's the answer you go with. You need to understand that behaviour in many different levels and depths, because someone can't tell you why they behave the way they do. You've got to ask a number of different questions to interpret that behaviour. Everybody has a different perspective. So from a car owner's perspective, looks a pretty good parking space. From that child's perspective, let's do it like that. From that child's perspective, completely different. What a fun place to play. We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. So if I could stress anything, is understanding your audience. So if you're using the social marketing insight route, speak to people and understand them. So in terms of children in Liverpool, the issue we have is children consume 3 times more sugar than is recommended. The biggest source is sugary drinks, breakfast cereals and snacks. The average child, aged between 4 and 10, consumes around 5.5 sugar cubes a year, which is more than the body weight of a 5-year-old. Too much sugar can cause childhood obesity and tooth decay. In Liverpool, 26% of 4 to 5-year-olds are overweight or obese. When you get to age 9 and 10, that rises to 40%. For adults, it's 65%. So we need to stop it as soon as we can from an early age. On average, 2 children a day under the age of 10 have to be admitted to hospital to be anaesthetised for put to sleep to have teeth removed, which is shocking and preventable. Over 2,000 children under the age of 5 have teeth removed, which, when you think how preventable that is. So when we've gone out and we've looked at our audience and we've understood why they behave that they do, parents simply don't know how much sugar the children are consuming. Food labels are bewildering. Parents find it hard to understand just how much sugar is in individual pieces of food. Single items such as breakfast cereals mightn't appear to be sort of high in sugar, but when you combine that with other items during the day, it all adds up, and I'm going to show you an example of that in a moment. And something we were speaking about before is parents of children are more likely to believe that if a sugary cereal has other nutritional benefits, it's okay for breakfast. So again, the commercial world are very clever at the very front of the package. High in nutrients, high in vitamins, fortified, whatever, sort of flashing out. So because of all of this, we devised a campaign with the brand called Save Kids from Sugar. And what we've done is we've named and shamed drinks and breakfast cereals as a starter, and the sugar content in each of those. Now, this is just an example of the drinks. There's a wider range, and I'll show you some examples in a moment. And we've also got a website that has a much wider range on there as well. And what we've done is we've taken the information that's already on a label that's available to anyone, and we've just put that in an easy to understand way. So we did have a lot of legal advice before we went out and named and shamed, but because we're just given information that's already there, we've just presented it in a different way. And we're also saying in terms of healthier options, it's water or milk. So this was launched last year. And the middle one, in terms of dentist tips there, we've also touched on diet drinks, because the sugar in the high sugar ones can cause tooth decay, but the acid in diet drinks can cause enamel erosion. So we're not advocating diet drinks either. And we just wanted to make the point in case this then turned people to diet drinks. So in terms of the sugar cube content of some of the drinks, it looks quite dramatic, doesn't it? It looks quite shocking that it's a lot, can fit a lot of sugar into one smallish bottle. Take breakfast cereals. It doesn't look as dramatic when you put it like that after seeing the drinks. But it still matters, and it's still important, because a child could be having over half the recommended daily amount of sugar just before they go to school. And if they have a breakfast cereal, they have a sugary drink and a snack during the day, I'm going to give you some examples just how much that could all add up during a day. So focused on drinks and breakfast cereals. With the breakfast cereals, we were able to put them into red, amber and green, and give the healthier options there. And what we've got on the bottom as well is boxes that you can find in Aldi and Lidl as well. So it's not just the branded ones, it's supermarket owned brands as well that people need to be mindful of. So if a child, for example, has a bowl of Cocoa Pops, a Coke, chocolate bar, they could be having over 20 sugar cubes in one day, which is against the daily recommended amount. Shocking. So what we've done, because, as we've said, it's hard for parents to understand what is in children's drinks and cereals and so on. We've designed this website, and on the website is a sugar check tool. And I'm going to give you an example of what's on the tool. So on the website there's check now, and it takes you through a scenario for your own child. So we're going to pick a girl. Does anyone want to give me a scenario, or do you want me to just do my own? Do it. So we'll pick a child, age 6, a girl age 6. Right, for breakfast, you've got all the cereals here. She's going to have... Oh, we pick something not too bad. We'll pick Cheerios. Okay. Now this is based on a 40-gram bowl, which is pretty small in terms of serving. So this girl, she's going to have one of those bowls a day. And in terms of a drink, she can have a Ribena. Does anyone remember the Ribena advert with the berries and the vitamin C? Again, making it look very healthy. So they're going to have some Ribena. Oops, hang on. Let me do that again. And she's just going to have one bottle of that. So these are a range of snacks that a child may have during the day. So we've got a cake, which is just an average cake, a chocolate bar, a yoghurt, biscuits or sweets. And we'll pick the yoghurt. So this is just an average sized standard yoghurt. With just those 3 items, the child will have had nearly 15 sugar cubes. Now, they don't seem like very bad choices, do they? Cheerios, Ribena and a yoghurt. Yoghurts are, well, some shop-bought yoghurts are particularly bad. So the next phase of the campaign, which we're going to launch at the end of April, is looking at yoghurts. And the recommendation for yoghurts is plain yoghurt, low-fat Greek yoghurt, and add your own fruit, because most shop-bought yoghurts have a lot of added sugar in there, which are mostly sold as healthy type snacks. So then the website goes on to give you advice and so on and so forth. So on the website as well, we've also got these animations.
I'm 7. My mummy says too much sugar hurts my teeth and does bad things to my insides. The most I'm allowed is up to 6 sugar cubes a day. So if I have one of these for breakfast, then a sugary drink. Whoa, that's more than double I'm allowed all day. I could be at risk of scary stuff like this. Check how much sugar your kid's having at savekidsfromsugar.co.uk.
So the website's there for anyone to use. Now, we have had some local authorities coming and asking to use the resources, which we're also willing to share as well. And I'll just, if you open these out, these are called Cartridge, I'm sure you're familiar with them. And it's got, as I can't walk too far. So what we've done with these is we've held events in supermarkets. There mightn't be enough for both. We've held events in supermarkets, so just before the parent is going in to do the shopping, we're giving advice, we're talking about the sugar and we're giving these. And so these are being used then as shopping lists for parents to go in and choose healthier options. And around 60% of parents actually went in and bought a different breakfast cereal on the back of this. In terms then of the evaluation of using those different methodologies, we had a very good response from the press nationally. Mintel, I don't know if people have heard of Mintel, it's an industry report which the commercial world actually use sort of to see sort of how different retailers are comparing to themselves and trends, new product development and so on. And we actually got into this report as a market driver for sugar reduction, which is brilliant. We've done a representative sample survey of our population once we've done this campaign. 65% of parents recalled seeing the campaign because it was out there in many different settings. 65%, sort of as a benchmark, is a very good recall figure. And something I should have said as well, when we produced sort of the imagery, the brand, we co-created this with parents as well, so we'd done concept testing. So we had a number of different concepts before we got to this one, tested it and co-created it with parents. So again, understanding why people behave they do and what's going to motivate them to change is very important. 67% of parents who had seen the campaign changed their behaviour. For the first 3 months, over 8,500 parents in Liverpool completed that sugar check tool. Those animations which I showed were seen over 100,000 times. And events which I just mentioned reached over 3,000 parents. Also, brilliant resource to put into schools. Children just love these. Before we launched this, we had a schools competition to get children to produce a poster on the dangers of sugar. So before we launched it, we sort of got the children sort of thinking about it, getting them to understand the dangers of sugar before we launched it. And then we chose sort of the best poster, and then that was put up in all schools. So overall, a very successful campaign, as I say. From April, end of April, we're adding yogurts, and they'll be included on the website that I've just shown you as well. And the website name is on the back of the cards I've given you as well. Your behavioural insights is automatic. It's there and then. You see the changes straight away. With your social marketing and insight, it takes longer. And there's a reason for that, which I'm going to show you in this summary now. So going back to the reflective and automatic. So what I've just said there, your automatic, you can see the changes instant. So with this, we could measure sort of the change in sales on a daily basis. But with this one, it's just going to take a lot longer. But you're also educating people as well. So you've got to weigh up what you want to use and why you want to use it and the issues you want to solve. So take this example. The reason it takes a lot more time is because behaviour goes through different stages. We don't just go from giving information to making a change. The brain works from sort of not knowing something to being given a bit of information, and you start to think about it, you're more aware, you can contemplate that information you've been given. You then may prepare to make a change, and then you make that change. Then you need to maintain that change. So there's different stages of behaviour that a market research and social marketing route would take you. Now, with the social marketing route, you don't always have to expect or need behaviour change. For some issues that you may have, just creating the first step to awareness may be enough and may be a success for what your issue may be. So take, for example, we've done a project on physical activity. So in Liverpool, we've got a huge issue with people being inactive. Now, Sport England have done a lot of work in that area as well, so we've worked a lot with Sport England. And Sport England told us at the very beginning, manage your stakeholders' expectations. Don't expect in year one to go from 0 to behaviour change. If you go from 0 to raising awareness of A, B and C, you've been a success. So if you're doing something along these lines, manage your stakeholders' expectations, because they may come back and say, well, that didn't work, you haven't changed any behaviours. But if you've just raised the awareness of an issue, that could be enough. And it's a step that needs to continue. Something else you need to be mindful of if you take the social marketing and insight route is not everybody, as we mentioned, behaves the same. You may need to look at segmentation. So looking at why different parts of the population behave in different ways. This is segmentation that was developed by the Department of Health years and years ago, called Healthy Foundations. Has anyone heard of it? Yeah. It's something we've used a lot, again in Liverpool. There's an algorithm, you ask 9 questions and it'll allocate someone to one of those segments. And it's brilliant because it's another way to understand how people may behave in different ways. So take your balance compensators, the middle group there. Mainly young people, they like to live life to the full, but they also, they value the health, they value the looks, they value sort of how they're perceived to other people. So these are people that may go and have a good night on a Saturday night, have maybe one too many, but they'll go to the gym the next day and they think then that by going to the gym the next day, it cancels out having that binge drink the night before. So there's certain ways then you'd target that audience sort of with different messages and so on. You live for today's are people, as it says, live for today. You'll tell them to do something and they'll go, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And they'll find something more interesting and go off and do something else. So you have to keep reminding them, bringing them back, telling them again and again, before they'll change their behaviour. So just something else to bear in mind in terms of changing behaviour. You may need to look at different pockets of people in terms of why they behave. Not one size fits all.